Hello and welcome back to another lesson about the Black Lion. The part 1 is in the description down below, but here I'm gonna give you a full ideas in the Black Lion and what you need to know, how you're processing your attack on the king side, and what is the white's ideas also, because white is getting pretty much comfortable in some of the variations, and how we should gonna answer on those variations with the black pieces. Here I want to tell something about the Black Lion in general and which players should play the Black Lion. Firstly, the Black Lion is not for the players above 2000 because in those cases, like White is managing to make a really nice plan. For the players under the 2000, it's pretty much comfortable because in most of the cases, Black is the one who is attacking because White doesn't know how to set up the pieces against the Black Lion. Okay, firstly, we're gonna start for the main ideas for both sides and to go for the main variation. Then after we're gonna get through the variations that can happen, but not that usually. I want to say that it's coming for the e4, d6, and now knight to f6. So this is the main position, how you're starting the pierce defense, and then after how you're transposing to the black lion. Knight to c3, defending the pawn on e4. And here it's really important to know that you can go for the risky one and for the normal one. Like if you want to play more risky, you're gonna play knight from b to d7. But if you want to go like with a normal game, you can go with e5. And here, let's firstly check quickly what is the thing about this e5. In that case, white can always capture, and after you capture, then he can exchange the queens. And what are you getting from that? Like after the exchanging the queens here, this position is pretty much fine for both sides. Black is the one who doesn't have the castles here, but generally black is fine. All the variations is leading black in a fine position. Maybe white is slightly better, but you're not gonna risk with other variations as with this one. What is the idea here? White can play here the move bishop g5 and go fast castling here, but in that case you can just go here with a c6 and after castling to put your king on c7. The idea here is your king is pretty much safe here, and the point is the knight on d5 and knight on b5 is not possible. Then after you're gonna develop your pieces in the normal way, such as this, and this, for example, and your game is pretty much normal here. Like you're getting into this end game. I mean, it's not end game, it's still middle game, but it's coming close after we exchange more pieces. It's gonna be end game there. The pawn structure is very much similar, and white doesn't have so much ideas how to break the center and target your king in the center because the queens are not on the board. Here, of course, white can continue with the knight to f3, and then you're gonna play knight from b to d7, which is gonna transpose in our variation that we're gonna mostly examine on this lesson. So after knight from b to d7, if he plays knight to f3, you're going with e5. You can see it's a transposing, it's very similar, so it can end up from any of this variation if you start with e5 immediately or knight from b to d7. Okay. Now the main move from white is bishop c4, and that's the most aggressive move from white because he's immediately touching your pawn on f7, which is the always a big weakness for us. In that case, you need to play bishop e7 here. You cannot go with the main idea of playing c6. Generally, the c6 is the most important move in the black lion. I mean in the pierce also, because you are keeping control over the b5 and d5 squares. So that's why you are going with the bishop e7 immediately. If you play here the move c6, then after there is a move knight to g5, and after that white is better because you're struggling to defend this pawn. You need after to play some moves such as d5 here, and then you're sacrificing the pawn. That's not good for black. That's why we are going firstly bishop e7, and if he now goes knight to g5, we can go in castles. In that way our rook on f8 will protect the pawn on f7. But this variation we're gonna examine after. Now we want to see what's happening if white continues with the normal castling. Okay, after castles, you're playing c6, and generally the idea of c6 is always to play b5 and trying to do something on the queen side there. In most of the cases, white will prevent it with a4. That's also the best move for white. And now we are out of the idea of playing b5. We cannot that easily play the move a6 because there is a move a5, and now this pawn is controlling our queen side very well. We cannot go for that. So in that case, we can continue with the move h6 or queen to c7. What is the difference? The difference is which idea more suits to you. Like if you want to play normal game, you can go queen to c7 and go castles. But if you want to achieve something more aggressive, you can continue with h6 and g5, the generally main idea in the black line. Let's check first with the queen to c7 and what can happen there. With the queen c7, you are postponing your idea with h6 and g5, which you can actually achieve then after queen c7. But in that case, you can give the white ideas what he's gonna play. He can go with a move such as b3, then rook e1 also. He can play the move bishop to a2 and queen to e2 for example. b3 is the most aggressive choice from white, and he's stopping your idea of playing h6. That's the most important line that you need to know. So now the h6 and g5 is very risky for us, but we can still play that move, of course. After h6, bishop b2, g5 for example, I want to show you how it looks like. Then for example knight to e2, and now knight e4. You can see that here white is sacrificing the pawn for a big initiative in the center and targeting your king, which is staying on e8. And also now this bishop is pretty much well working against this rook on h8. So black is struggling after to achieve something normal, because he can always exchange and try something to do in the center, because he has this very nice bishop pair. Okay, after e6 here you can see that black is just collapsing, so we cannot go for that idea h6 and g5 if white goes the b3 move. But the b3 is really hard to find, and it's generally hard to know that move, because you need to study with white the black line if you want to know how to counter it. So that's why on the b3 we are playing here the normal things such as castles, then putting the rook on e8, trying to move this knight somewhere to open up this bishop, and you're continuing with the normal style of playing, and you are expecting something to happen in the center to break it, like you're waiting for white to take on e5, then you're gonna recapture with your d pawn, and that's how the game should continue. I mean, after queen c7, there is also a move such as, for example, rook e1. In that case, you can play h6, but you can also steal castles. But if you want to play the risky line, I mean, the generally to attack in the king side, then you're gonna go here with h6. And now let's see, for example, like if white continues with a move such as a5, he just wants to stop your ideas of playing the b5 here. Also, maybe he wants to play the a6 move here. Now you're going here with a g5, and you want to target there on the king side. I want to say that in this position, engine is preferring white. But if you see this move, like on the board as a white, it's not so much comfortable to have this attacking process on the king side while the king of white is staying there. So after, for example, move b3 here, you're playing knight to f8, you want to move your knight on g6, and then after to protect this pawn this way, and also to control the f4 square for you. Let's say exchange is there and playing bishop b2. Okay, knight to g6. So now the game is pretty much normal. We are protecting the e5 square, e5 pawn with a queen and with a knight, and also we are managing ideas on the king side, like the things that we generally want to achieve in the game. Okay, let's see now what can happen in the game. Bishop a3, then g4. So you are not care about this bishop on a3. If he takes your bishop, then you're just gonna recapture it with a queen. After that, he needs to move the knight, obviously. He doesn't have the h3 move, so he cannot go with the move knight to h2. Also, knight h4 is not possible, so he needs to go back with the knight there. Okay, in that case, you're continuing, h5. So you're not stopping with this pawn pushing. Your king is pretty much safe here. He doesn't have ideas of knight b5, knight to d5, so that's why your pawn on c6 is pretty much awesome and controlling those squares. After that, knight f1, always useful for white, because he is not just controlling that square, he is also controlling this square. So white is also managing the defense, and we just don't care about that. We are continuing with our pawn pushing. And for example, after knight to e3 here, now we are getting to our point with a g3 move. So we are crushing the king side. We want to open it, so we want to break it. That's the point. Because we still have the rook on h file. Also, our queen is very close. Our bishop is point on that side of the board. Our knights are staying there. So we don't have so much ideas here to continue the game normal in the center, because we already opened the king side. So that's generally our main point. For example, after exchanging here, we are taking back, and after h takes g3, now the king for now looks safe. But of course, there is a move bishop e7, then you can go into castles, bring another rook into the game. That's kind of style that you also can achieve in your now we get too far, but I want to show you this game and how it actually looks like very close, how black managed to do something there. After knight f5, queen c5. So you're not exchanging this bishop. Why? Because this bishop is staying very good here, covering this line, and we can always go in big side castling. Queen c5 is always useful move, giving a check. So now white needs to do something here, and after king to f1, we can just castle. So now we are threatening the move bishop takes f5. Also, there is a possibilities in the future to play rook h1 check, but the king can escape here. So we are postponing that because now we want to see what white's gonna play. He needs to move the queen. If he not move the queen, then there is a bishop takes f5. And now you see from this variation how black managed to attack on this side of the board. That's your point, that's how you want to achieve. Now let's go slightly back. And for example, let's see if he plays such a move here, b3. Like that's also like the best system for white and how he generally wants to play against the black lion. Then we are playing knight to f8. After bishop b2, we are continuing knight g5. But this is a blunder. As I told you before, that b3 and bishop b2 is always the best choice for white. After takes knight e5. So white is getting a lot of things after this one because we cannot take on e5. If we take, then after there is a move knight to d5 here, and like if we take here the bishop, there is a knight to c7 checkmate. So we cannot go for that. Always remember that after white is placing the bishop b3, bishop b2, he has always this idea of sacrificing the knight on e5, somehow putting your queen in an uncomfortable position on this diagonal. There is this bishop, and he's generally opening. So those sacrifices always popular in the black lion with a white pieces. So in that case, we should continue with the normal things, such a knight to g6 here, protecting that pawn with a knight, and go castles, then playing bishop g4, putting another rook into the game, putting this rook on e8, and we are continuing to play in that way. That's our main point after that. Okay, let's go back and see in general, for example, after a4 here, what's gonna happen after the move h6, if you go first that move. After h6, a lot of players who don't know what is the point with b3, they're putting the bishop on e3, and that's why they're playing h3 moves, because they want to stop the knight g4 move. H3 is always a lovely move for us. Why? Because always when someone is pushing the pawns and making the movement with the pawns on the side where king is staying, he's making a potential weakness. So now our idea of g4 and g5, for example, is gonna get on the point really quickly, because in that case we're not just gonna target the pawn, we're gonna also target the knight. So he needs to do something about that. You can go here the move queen c7, but you can also start immediately with a g5. As I told you before, engine is always preferring the white, but if you look at this position as a human and also on your level, that's not I can say that this one is not so much comfortable for white because most of the players just don't know what to do here. After this one, they like to exchange in the center and to play knight to h2 because they're scared about g4. After that, you are very convenient to go with the move queen c7 and to play the moves like you generally did in the game. For example, after bishop e3, normal developing the move, knight f8, knight g6. You're always going with that idea. After knight g4, they're thinking that maybe they can stop our idea of playing the g4 or h5 g4, but in that case, you need to remember that you're always capturing there by the bishop. Why? Because after capturing by the bishop, your idea of knight g6 and knight f4 is getting more better, and also the h5 in the future. And also I can say that your knights are more flexible on this side of the board than having the bishop on c8 and just targeting something. So it's better to take here with a bishop, then also open up this rook. Maybe if he moves the queen somewhere, then we are on the castles very fast, and putting another rook on this line, trying to do something there. Let's check quickly what happened in this one. Okay, g3, queen c8, targeting the pawn. This is some kind of idea that you can implement in your game. And for example, after bishop e2, putting the bishop back, also putting the pieces back, not a great choice for white, because always when someone is putting pieces back to defend something, it's not a great. Queen e6, putting the queen on the really nice square. Also maybe the next move can be this one. Bishop to f3, rook g8. Why rook g8? Because, for example, after knight b1, and if white wants to achieve something like this, now you can stop the video and trying to see what is the main move here from black. If you found knight f4, that's a winning move. Why? Because if he try to catch this pawn like this, then we can just capture back. And now our next move is knight to g4. We are also attacking the bishop here, so black is winning here. Also the ideas of h5 and taking here is winning. Our king is safe. We are opening the king side. Our rook is really strong now, so yeah, that's why. But of course he will not take. He will play something like knight to d2, but in that case we just don't stop. We are playing h5 here. Let's say he will take, then queen here. So now we are targeting a lot of things here. There is also a very nice move knight g4 in the future. Like currently if we are now on the move as a black, knight g4 is possible. Why? Because if he takes, there is a checkmate in one move. And also we are targeting this square with a knight. So like we are sacrificing a lot of pieces for this attack. Let's say rook e1, trying to protect this idea of knight g4. In that case we are taking on h5, so why not? The bishop still cannot take this one because the checkmate is hanging here on g2. After knight f1, trying to protect something, then g4. So really nice one. Bishop h1 the only move, and now rook h8. So we are now searching for the idea of maybe knight to g3. And let's say g takes f4, knight takes f4, knight to g3, protecting it, and queen to h2. And now you can see how much black is leading in this game. He's pieced down, but knight h3 is the next one, targeting the f2. There is also potential ideas of playing the rook d8, putting the queen in uncomfortable position. Like always something is hanging in the air. So after this one, like also after king movement, there is a sacrifice here, and after this one, there is a checkmate. So black is winning here. Okay, let's go now back. You just saw how and what is the idea if white is playing slightly defensive. You can also go with idea before, like instead of playing the g5, you can also go with queen c7 if you want to achieve a more pleasant game, like if you don't want to hurry up and don't rush for these kind of things. Then after here is a lot of ideas for white. He can continue with the move bishop a2, rook e1, also queen to e2, bishop a3, like a lot of setups for white here. And I always like to play as a white, for example, on the rook e1, trying to protect this pawn in the future and to set up the pieces in the right way. Now if you go knight f8, you need to worry about the things knight h4 and the move bishop e3, because here now the move g5 is blunder for black again. So you need to be careful in some of those moments, but always this is really hard to find with the white pieces, because after taking here on e5 with the white, then there is just d taking back and knight f5. Again, this sacrifice, what is the point? After queen takes, there is a bishop to e5, and now he's with a piece down, but the center is open. And after you move the queen, for example, here there is a move e5, then the move e6, opening the bishop, targeting something there. I can show you quickly how it looks like. Like it's very, very dangerous for black because white's gonna get the material back and the king is open in the center. So that practically means that you cannot go with this idea if he's positioning the bishop on e3 and rook on e1. That's why h6 and g5 looks before instead of queen c7 even faster. So I like to play that move firstly, then queen c7 after, if I want to also develop my queen on the better spot. The move knight h4 is also here possible. In that case you need to play g6, and this is the most dynamic answer for knight h4. But also I don't like and I don't prefer this position where black is trying to protect the ideas of white to put the knight on f5, which looks very, very beautiful. Why not here any other move? Because there is a move knight f5, and if you take by the bishop here, you capture by the pawn, and then this line pointing out, pointing here to our king in the center. So that's why it's not good to give him a chance of placing the knight on f5. After g6, if he goes back with a knight, then you can now play g5. But if he doesn't go back, if he plays something like bishop to e3 or something similar, he wants to break the center because your king is staying in the center. In that case, you can go for that. But if he moves the knight back, then you're playing g5. After, for example, b3, knight to g6, bishop a3, let's say here, and g4. So you're now making your attack. Why not to go always for that move, opening up the king side? Now you can see that h3 and knight on f3. Why h3 is the move which not gives the white idea of defending, because the bishop is now not staying on e3, and he doesn't need general to protect the square for the knight on g4. After capturing, you're capturing back by the bishop. Let's say he's capturing everything in the center, exchanging the pieces here, and placing the queen on d3. In that case, you're continuing with your normal idea, playing the rook g8 here. And now after knight to h2, because you're threatening the move knight to f4, you're still going knight f4 here, but he wants to remove the knight from that square. And after, for example, queen to e3, you're putting your bishop on h3, so now you're targeting the g2 pawn more. And I will stop here because already black is with a lot of here resources how to attack on the kick side. Also there is a move after like castling, but first we need to care about this pawn. We're gonna put another rook on the g file, then also maybe this knight is coming into the game, or here. Your queen is pretty much flexible. They can go, for example, this way or this way then after. So that's how you're managing your attack here. The only move to protect something here is g3, and then after you can just take that material for you. Like, why not to take the exchange, because you're gonna feel more comfortable later in the game. Okay, so now we just crossed the main version how to play against the white if he's positioning the pieces in the normal way, like knight to f3, knight to c3, bishop c4, going castles, bishop e3, those kind of moves. Let's now go for the variation where after the fourth move and after the knight from b to d7, white is playing the move f4. So this one looks very interesting for white, of course, and that's some of the best choices for white here. In that case, you're gonna play the e5 move. And now the point is that you need to immediately be active in the center, because you cannot give him a chance to play himself the move e5. That's not a great idea for us. That's generally not a great position for us, so we want immediately to strike with e5. And now let me quickly just show you what's gonna happen if you exchange everything in the center and exchanging the queens here. You just need to know that this position is also very fine for black, very similar to the starting one. Why? Because you're always going with a c6, and after this one putting your king on c7. And if you try something like knight to f3, you're developing your pieces in a better way. And for example, after bishop e2, you're just putting your pieces in the right spots. Also now you're gonna develop your light square bishop. This pawn structure is now not like a big weakness for you, because actually it's controlling the knight on e5, opening the line. You have the bishop pair, another rook is coming into the game. So the black's position is pretty much fine here, and I mean, white is always trying to control your weaknesses, and that's a f5 square. In that case, you just want to make a counterplay. You want to position your bishop on e6, as I told you, take control over the g line to target his weaknesses, and maybe in the future trying to do something with these pawns, maybe to play f5, because you don't want to leave those double pawns for your endgame, for the rest of the game. That's why you don't have any problem if you exchange everything in the center. But most players are just gonna play here knight to f3, of course, in which case you need to take on d4. That's your last call. So after taking on d4, he can take with the queen, or he can take by the knight. If he takes by the knight, you'll play the move g6, and you're gonna go for this setup. That's the thing that you need to remember. So after any other move, like you're playing bishop g7, castles, rook e8, knight c5, and you're targeting that pawn on e4. That's your main idea if you can achieve that in the game, of course. For example, bishop to e3, bishop to g7, let's say he's playing the move bishop to d3, then you're going castles. After queen f3, like he's developing the pieces, he has the center, but you're staying by side. You're trying to hit that center with your knights and also with that open e-file. After rook e8, let's say g4, he wants to be aggressive, so he's pointing out that he wants to go in the long side castling. And now you need to break with a d5. And for example, after castles, knight c5 is always a nice move. Target the pawn on e4, and like after f5, you're taking here in the center. And what is the point? You cannot go here for taking the piece, because maybe he has some ideas of playing the move knight to e6. Also target your queen, target your knight here. So that's why white is choosing this variation to target your center, because he has pretty much opened the center with his rooks, and then after the king side is getting open. So this one is pretty much risky, but you're totally fine after queen e7, because his pieces are hanging around. You can see now you're pointing out on the bishop. He cannot that easy defend it, so he needs to do something about about opening, maybe with the g5 and f6, also closing your bishop and trying to give you a fork in exchange of that piece in the center. If you go slightly back, there is also other setups. For example, here he can go queen to d2. In that case, you're still going there, castling rook e8, bishop d3, knight c5. Like, you're going with that idea. You want to target the pawn on e4, and in this case, he will lose the e4 pawn because he cannot defend it in the nice way. He needs to sacrifice the pawn. Then after, for that compensation of the pawn, he will target your king side. But you are after that pretty much fine. Other setup, what can happen is, for example, bishop c4, but you're still going bishop g7, castles, castles, and like if he tries something, for example, with a f5 here, that seems to be pretty much early because he's weaknessing the spot on e5. In that case, you're not just targeting the bishop, you're also owning that square. After this one, c5 and c4 can be our next idea. After knight to f3, c4, and like if he exchange the pieces in that way, you're gonna take the bishop on b3, not the knight, because bishop is more valuable, and generally this light square bishop in any type of variation is gonna be Italian, Rue Lopez, French defense, Caracal. Like, this bishop is a really strong one, so you want always to manage if you can capture the bishop yourself or exchange it. So after this one, let's go back. You're taking on c2, and after queen to d5. Why not? Like, you're a bishop pair. You have the bishop pair. You want to target those pawns in the center. Also to open up your another bishop, to connect your rooks, to put your queen out, maybe even with a check, with a tempo. So it's pretty much nice for black here. So I can suggest you this position. If you try something like after c4, the bishop a4, then there is a move a6 and b5. Like trapping the bishop here. Your center is pretty much nice. Any type of queen exchanging here is going in your favor, so no worries about that. And yeah, you're pretty much comfortable here as a black. If you go slightly back and see what's gonna happen if he takes here by the queen, after d takes, queen takes, now it's a different. Now you are not going with the idea of playing g6 here and bishop g7. You're playing here the move c6, and your idea almost on any type of move here is gonna be the move d5. So after d5, you want to immediately target the queen with bishop c5. So let's see here if he plays the move bishop e3, for example, looks more normal, and he wants to castles very fast. In that case, you're playing here the move d5. And like if he takes, and which can happen on your games, like that he's just seeing that pawn is down here in the center, you're sacrificing the pawn, then after just bishop c5, achieving the activity. So that's your main thing always in the opening, not just in this one. In every opening, like, you don't care about the material if you have a lot of activity in the game. After queen to d3, queen to e7, so now he needs to worry about the bishop here. You can see that you're now putting the pressure on white. So white is not the one who is making a pressure in the center with his pawn chain. Now the pawn chain is not possible, is not anymore the pawn chain e4 and f4 is not anymore connected because he just take that pawn. Here, after, let's say, knight to d4, trying to stop this idea of targeting the bishop, in which case you're playing here the knight to b6, also opening the bishop, maybe the bishop g4, trying to stop the castles, or just normal developing the bishop on d7. There is a lot of cases like when you're taking here in d5 if he not takes your pawn, but if he takes your pawn, then you will just recapture, and like if he castles this way, now you are just putting the bishop on a6 and target the queen. So he cannot take here because there is a this and there is a this here. So after the king movement, bishop takes d4 and you're having the piece up in the game. If he takes here, that's also not possible because you're taking the bishop. I can also show you that. You can see you're taking the piece, also exchanging the queens, and you're piece up in the game. Very easy for black to win. So after, what can happen more here? That's why after d takes, he's going into the castles here, bishop a6, and when he moves the queen, now you're exchanging that bishop on f1. In which case, white will probably take the bishop, but the best move is bishop f2 with the idea of playing the rook e1. After bishop f2, you will just castles, takes with the rook, and playing the queen at c7. Your game here is pretty much normal, so the point here is just to target the queen side this way. Now this position is slightly better for white, of course, I will not lie to you, but I think that black has a lot of compensation on this side of the board, and with that pawn down, which is not staying on b line, you can do a lot of things here on the queen side. Okay, so the other thing that can happen is, of course, like here, for example, in this one, if he goes the move 91 and he's trying to protect the bishop in that way. But in that case, you can just take this pawn on d5, and now you're going to target that bishop more. And if he tries to protect it with king to f2, now you're coming here with a knight, and now you're going to target the knight to g4, for example. There is also a lot of things about bishop f5 now, sacrificing the bishop, and then after taking here on e3. For example, if he tries to stop the knight g4, now there is a move, for example, bishop to g4 here, or you can try to take this bishop and then play knight to d5. So now you're pinning it. He needs to put a rook. In that case, you will just exchange everything here, and you're ending up in the game where you have the exchange more. So you have the rook for the knight. If you go slightly back, the bishop f5 is also working here as a nice idea. If he takes, you will just capture here. If he captures like this, you can capture back by the queen. And after this one, the king is in a very, very bad spot. So there is a lot of ideas of knight e4, then doing something there like on the king side. But you need firstly to make sure that your knight is fine, because after this one there is a queen e4, maybe firstly to castle or something similar. And yeah, I think that black has a lot of things here to do, because the king is staying on a very, very weird spot. But I think it's just enough to take here and then go knight to d5. It's pretty much obvious. Then after that, black is winning the piece. I mean, winning the exchange after all this variation. Okay, if you go slightly back and see what can happen more here. For example, there is also a move such as a4, in which case you're still playing the d5 move. And here always white can go with this c5 idea, but that's generally the thing. It's not stopping us for our main things. Bishop c5, and after queen to d3, now it's quite different, because we didn't exchange the pawn in the center, so we now don't have the move queen e7. In which case we need to play here the move knight to g4 and now go for this idea. After knight to d1, stopping the idea of knight to f2, we are playing here the f6 moves, because we need to break something in the center. And if he tries something like this one, then in that case we can go here with a move knight to b6 and knight to c4, trying to do something on this side of the board. Because why? Because after, for example, knight to b6 here, we're gonna target the c4, and if he tries to protect this pawn with f5, now he's gonna make the spot for the knight in the future. So in which case we can control it more like this and like this. Then we also have the idea of playing g6 to destroy this pawn chain, which looks very uncomfortable for black. Then we can play the queen c7, then after the bishop can take this pawn on e6. So the position now for black is pretty much fine. Maybe white has the edge on in the position because of the space, because of the this pawn chain in the center, but you're gonna very, very nearly destroy this pawn center by white, who is putting a lot of pressure on your squares here, because you cannot achieve the development of bishop d7 and maybe go castle some way. And yeah, that's pretty much about this variation of f4. There is more, of course, but I cannot cover everything here. But this is the most ideas, to play d5 and bishop c5 to try to target the center immediately on the board, because you are the one who is struggling with the space, so you need some break. You cannot play defensive, you need to make some break there. Okay, now let's get slightly back and see about the ideas in the which I forgot to cover immediately. The ideas in this main variation about bishop c4 and the things that you need to know there about the sacrifice bishop takes f7. Here's the thing, you need to be very accurate here with the black or you're gonna lose some material. King takes f7, now it's coming pretty much forcing variation. King, knight to g5, then king to g8. If you go here and here, there is a move knight to g6 and like he will give you a fork or he will trap your queen here. So you cannot go with this one. You need to go there. King to g6 instead of king to g8 is a bad response because who's gonna play the king to g6? King to g8 is a better one. Now you need to know that you need to be aware of having that piece up for you. So after king to g8 and after knight to g6, knight to e6, sorry, queen e8, the only move, and after knight takes e7, you are not going back, you are playing the move queen to g6. Now you are targeting the pawn on g2, so you are putting him under pressure. Will he take your rook or he will go castles? There is a move castles, there is a move knight takes e8, of course, but the castles is better one. But most of the players are just gonna take your rook because why not to take the rook? I'm having the material now, so probably my position is fine, but it's not. Queen takes g2. The only move is rook f1. I mean, there is also king to e2, but in that case, you're just opening everything. Then this knight is coming into the game. Then bishop g4 is coming on the board. So the black is just winning here. Let me just show you. And like after knight takes e4, you will not take back by your queen because you want knight c5 and you want bishop g4 here to win the queen. That's your idea. I mean, knight e4 we can come like in any way here, because if you try something like this, then like you can try firstly with this one, but you can also take here with the tempo, and then like when he moves the king there, there is like a nice checkmate here very soon. If he goes this way, then you can just collect more material. He cannot defend any type of thing here. So yeah, black is just winning here. If he plays rook f1, which is probably going to happen in your game, you need to know that e takes d4 is the main move. Immediately target the knight, and after the queen takes, which is obvious, knight to f5. So now you're targeting the knight to f3, he needs to defend. And the only move who is defending white of some attack here for black is to move f3, which is really hard to find. F3, you can still take on f3, but you are not playing that move, you are playing here knight to h5, with idea of opening the bishops like this, and also targeting the king side in that way. If you take on f3, then after that white can very easily defend himself. But let me just show you this variation according to the agent, which is preferring the black, of course. Bishop to h4, king here, putting the queen back. Rook f1 he needs because we can also take the rook there. Then bishop to h3. If he goes with a queen back like this one, then you can just trade. If he put the rook there, then in that case you're gonna put your queen here and then target this pawn in that way. But after queen g1, bishop takes, queen takes, and king to f7, putting the rook on f8, then king to g8, you're targeting the king side. The king is staying very weak on e2. He needs a lot of time to put the knight back, also to develop other pieces. Like he needs 4 or 5 moves to develop other pieces. You need just 2 moves and immediately to target that pawn on f3, which is for now permanently weakness for white. If you go slightly back and see, for example, here, if he plays such a move like a queen e3, in that case, just bishop to h3, targets the rook, queen e2, knight to f3, winning the rook, and like you're just piece up in this game, and this knight still staying in the corner, as you can see here. So after just the move queen to e3 and after bishop h3, white is collapsing in the game. That's the thing that you need to know about. If you go again slightly back and after this take, and after knight f5, if you look a move about the f4 move, now there is a move knight from f to g4, and we are now targeting the idea of playing bishop to h4 here, giving a check, and also we want to take that rook for us. But bishop h4 is here unstoppable, and according to the engine, black is winning in a couple of moves, so there is no way how white can defend this one. And yeah, that's about this variation. If he takes the rook, if he goes castles, the things that you need to know here, firstly rook b8, because now you cannot give up this rook that easily, And like if you try something like f4, then just h6, and you're making a space for your king here. Then you want to play the rook f8. You're not scared about the moves such as f5 here, because you can always offer the exchange of the queens. Then after king here, and you're piece up in the game. Other thing that can happen is taking here, then putting the knight here on e5. With that piece down, you just want to break the center, open up something there, and exchange more pieces, because that's the rule and chess principle. When you're better, you're exchanging the pieces. If he plays here the bishop e3, then just takes here, because he already lost the tempo if he takes back by the bishop. Knight to b6, opening the bishop, king h7, rook f8. Also the same idea, like you need to go with that, because you need to connect to the rook, so to open up, develop the pieces. If you're not managing that, then white is getting on the point with that compensation of sacrificing the piece in an early opening. That's the idea. And don't be scared also in this one, because he sacrificed already the bishop, light square bishop, so he's not available to target you on this diagonal. Expect with the queen, who is too far away from this diagonal, but you always have the spot for h7 for your king. Okay, that's about this variation. If he sacrificed the piece on f7 in early opening. Okay, let's now check the other very aggressive variation for white, and that's a move after knight for b to d7. That's a move g4. This one is also very strong for white, and you need to know how to set up your pieces in this way. I have one game here that I played recently on one Blitz tournament. h6 has to be on the board, and my opponent played here the move g5. This variation is not good for white. Why? Because he wants to achieve that knight is staying here, and he wants to take here by the knight, not with the bishop. In that case, you're just capturing, and after bishop captures, you're playing e5. Pretty much comfortable for black here. And the point here, why to take here by the knight? Because if you manage to take here by the knight, then this knight can stay here forever on g5, because the bishop on c1 is protecting that knight, and also this bishop on c4 together with this knight is targeting your f7. So if white achieves that, then white is so much better in the position. But because he played it early g4 g5, in that case black is in that case black is totally fine after he takes immediately here with the bishop. Okay, and here in my game the opponent played the knight to f3 move, in which case I'm getting pretty much comfortable after c6. Then he played the move bishop g2, which is not a great idea for him, closing the bishop on this diagonal. And now I play the move queen to f5. So now I'm targeting the idea of playing knight takes e4 here, because after knight takes e4 he cannot take back, because this is a pin, and also I'm attacking the bishop. So he needs to protect something with that, and he went with the idea of playing queen to d2. In which case I played the move knight to b6. So now I can move the knight, because my queen is protecting this pawn, and also I'm threatening the move knight to c4. He didn't play the move b3 immediately, because he was scared about making a lot of weak dark squares in the position. And maybe I have some idea of playing the d5 and bishop b4 very, very easily. So that's why he firstly played the rook to b1, and he wants maybe to go with the idea of playing b4 here, just to ruin position of my queen. But in that case, I just really don't care. I play here to knight to c4, target the queen, and after queen to d3, I play the move b5, because now I want to protect my knight, and my knight is pretty much staying very well on c4. You can see that. My idea now is to develop the bishop, also put another rook into the center. I'm still controlling this line, so any type of castling here might gonna ruin his king side, because I have the rook there, but it's not that much scared. I'm focusing so much now on the queen side here, because I already make a lot of ideas. Maybe there is some sacrifice like this, then after like this, because the knight is staying pretty much awkward there. Then also maybe bishop a6, then b4, then target some things on this diagonal. So black is getting better here. I mean, black is already better, but one more mistake from white, and white can be in a very lost position. And that's why he played here the b3 move. That's a pretty much natural move. Looks like that he's kicking out my knight from c4, which is staying really, really strong. But in that case, after knight to e3, white is losing. Why? Let me show you what happened in the game. In the game, he played the move rook to c1, protecting this pawn on c2. Sorry. He played the move rook to d1, but the rook c1 was better move to protect its pawn on c2. Rook d1 looks mostly natural. Why? Because putting the rook on the open line. But let me show you what happened in the game. I played the move here, the b4. So in that case, if he moves the knight, there is a move bishop to a6, where the queen doesn't have a great spot to place. Let me show you if he moves the knight, for example, here, then after that bishop to a6, and now if he moves the queen here, there is a knight e4. If he moves the queen here, there is a move knight to c2 and giving a fork to the queen and to the king. You can see that. It's not possible for white. So that's why in this one, he saw that he is worse and he took here. But anyway, I still can play the bishop a6. And that's the thing that I played in the game. After bishop a6 here, I'm targeting the queen. Also, I'm stopping the castle. And he cannot take here because the queen is hanging. So he needs to move the queen. If he goes here, there is a fork. You see that. If you go here, there is a still fork, the same idea. And he played in the game queen here. I just took the knight, so now I'm piece up. And after this one, the only square, because if he moves the queen sovereign like this, it's not just, or queen to e3, it's not just a fork, it's the checkmate, if you can see here. So I'm giving a checkmate in the center of the board to the white king. That's why he needs to go on c1 to protect this pawn. And now we are getting on the point why rook to c1 was better to protect the pawn and like cut off all ideas from black here. After queen c1, I took on e4, so now I'm targeting the bishop. I'm having pretty much comfortable position. So he moved the bishop because he doesn't want to exchange. And now my opponent get pretty much low on time. I use that pressure on his time and also the advantage in the position. He went something like bishop f1, I play bishop c5, target here. He went bishop to g3, trying to protect his pawn, but anyway, I'm targeting more. And you can see how much the queen is stuck there. Cannot protect any piece now on the board, cannot protect this one. Look at this position, look at the king, look at the queen. Everything is just very, very bad for white. And after he took my bishop here, he needs to do something. I took back, he moved the king, and then I just stay here. I'm threatening the checkmate in one move. That's the thing that also cannot be defended. And he resigns here. The bishop is also hanging. I'm a lot of pieces up in the game. My pawn structure is much more better and just winning for black. That was in the game. And you see now, if he goes slightly back to the main point after the g4 move here, that after h6, if white doesn't play good moves, doesn't continue with ideas on g4, if he plays weird moves such as g5, trying to do something there, it's not good because you are getting pretty much comfortable after playing your own idea of playing c6 and b5 after all these ideas when he's starting pushing pawns on this side of the board. That's your main idea. You need to remember that any type of pawn pushing on the king side, you need to make some counterplay on the queen side with the idea of playing c6 and b5, queen a5, then maybe rook b8, because he wants obviously to go in this side castling. Any type of move here, bishop e7, is not great for us because we are losing tempo just with that. You see from my game that I didn't play the move bishop e7 because my queen was already out, and you're just gonna lose the tempo. And this bishop staying very nice here. Maybe in the future stopping the idea of rook g1 and targeting our pawn on g7. That's another thing. So you don't need to waste your time of developing the bishop in that case because position is getting pretty much open now, and you want to play play the queen a5, b5 immediately. So you can see here after castling, queen a5. If the white continues in the normal way, if he doesn't play any move like a knight to f3 bishop g2, for example, knight to f3 b5, so you're not developing the bishop as I told you. And after this exchanging in the center, if he wants to point out that he wants to do something on the king side, then now you can develop your bishop on b4. So that's your main idea. Like, you're not putting bishop on e7 because that bishop one time in the game, he will be placed on the b4 or on the c5. That's your main idea here. And now, like, how you can continue here, you can develop your bishop this way, then you can go castles this way. Because castling on this side of the board is not good for us because white is getting a lot of compensation of that, targeting something on this line. That's why it's better to go on this way, even if your pawn structure looks like this with a c6 and b5. Okay, and let me show you one more game after the white plays the right move here, the h3. In that case, you need to continue with the e5. He played the move here, knight from g to e2. And now I played here in the position not b5. That's the move that I should play. I didn't play that move, so the line is going b5. And like if he tries to protect it because you have the move knight to e2, then now you're playing the c6. But I played with a different move order. I played here the move c6, and now he played the move a4. And in that case, I know that if I go queen to c7, bishop e7, castling, for example, let me show you, bishop g2, bishop e7, castling. If I continue with a normal thing, then later in the game, he's getting pretty much comfortable with f4, and look how much this pawn chain, pawn storm on the king side in the center looks very uncomfortable for black. So that's the thing that I didn't like to happen. That's why here, after a4, he wants to stop my b5, because you remember, always if he making some pawn pushing on the king side, you need to go with a counterplay on the queen side, like b5, queen e5. But he's stopping now that idea. So now I play the move d5. According to the engine, this is a fine move, but it's not the best, of course. D5, and now I want to open up the center. Why? Because he made already this pawn movement on the king side, and after this, then he took everything here in the center and played the move bishop g2. He needs, by the way, to be careful here if he play any other move, like if he attacks my knight, for example, like this, then there is a checkmate in one move, so that's not possible. Actually, I didn't mention that this game was against one grandmaster from my country in Serbia. The previous game that I showed you was against one FIDE master, and I played, this one was a draw that I'm showing you now. The previous one I won. So after bishop g2 needs to play that move, also planning to go castles. I need to protect the pawn in the center. He went castles, and then I play bishop c5. Now this pawn, isolated pawn in the center, looks bad for black, but I'm not focusing on that so much. I'm focusing of maybe sacrificing that pawn for the initiative on this side of the board. There's a lot of ideas of making some sacrifices here and trying to give him a checkmate on this side of the board. In that case, he played the move knight f4, and I need to castles here because I cannot keep my king in the center because he has a lot of ideas about this one. And now if he takes my bishop, that was not in the game. In the game was knight takes d5, but if he takes my bishop here and trying something like rook e1 to target my knight and target the pawn here behind, can you find now the move for black and how he should continue in the game? Okay, if you found the moves such bishop takes f2 or knight takes g4, both moves are very fine for black, but I think that mostly the knight takes g4 is better because in that case you're targeting with every piece the f2 square. So if he now takes, then now bishop takes f2. If he moves this one, then there is a checkmate very soon, queen h4, then queen g3, queen takes h3. Let me show you, it's a checkmate. But if he goes this way, now in that case, like, you can just take here the rook, and then for that compensation of having the rook for two pieces and also the couple of pawns more in the position, 2 pawns more, you're getting pretty much nice. And like after this one, there is also like queen h4 collecting this pawn. I think black is winning here because of the king's safety. So that's why he cannot take here, that's why he took there, and then I exchange the knight, and after the knight take here, now I'm getting an idea of queen h4 here. And my point is at some moment to put a lot of pressure on this f2 pawn, and also maybe some potential sacrifice with the bishop here. Then after the pawn takes, knight takes here, and I'm gonna target the h2 square for the checkmate. Why exchange one piece? Because I want to open up this diagonal for my queen, and also I don't want to exchange so much pieces here, taking also with the bishop, because in that case after he will exchange my queens, and after exchanging the queens, white is just clearly pawn up in the game. I cannot do a lot of things here, so after that he will play the bishop f4, putting the rooks in the center, and white is better. That's why I didn't exchange. I played the queen h4, and now he starts thinking a lot in my game. After bishop e3, now it's coming pretty much forced variation, because he's thinking that he's supporting the pawn on f2 by playing and offering exchange of my bishop. In that case, I took on g4, then he took again, and after knight takes, I'm threatening the checkmate in one move. But he saw the defense of rook e1, so after this check, there is a king to f1 here, and the king can run, and I'm piece down now, so white is winning probably. He can defend, but he forgot about the idea of bishop just takes e3 here, and now there is no piece who is protecting this pawn. So after the pawn takes, I played queen to f2 check, and after king h1 I was calculating, can I maybe get something from this game, because I see that I have the perpetual check. The engine is showing here it's a 0-0-0, so it means that black needs to continue with these perpetual checks. But there is some interesting line about after this one and after this check, where after queen to g3 I'm threatening again to play queen to f2, and if he plays something like queen to e2 here, to continue with the idea of playing f5 and f4 here, bringing another rook into the game. But this one looks pretty much risky because there is no something concrete here for black. According to the engine, it's fine for black. Maybe white black is slightly better because of the king's safety of white. But it's really hard, especially not just on my level, maybe on the next level, to find the best moves from the engine. You need to be very accurate, so that's why I keep a draw, and also draw against the grandmaster is pretty much nice result. So you see here generally that this move g4 is not a big deal for white. I mean, those variations that we just cover, everything in Black Lion, that's basically the most important things that you need to know. We covered the main variation, we covered some sidelines, we covered some sacrifice of white immediately the opening, also this g4 and f4 variation. So that's for start what you need to know. Like, there is also more variations, more ideas for white, and more alternatives, but basically under the 2000 rating on chess.com you're gonna face mostly these lines. For the next one, for the next video in the future, I'm gonna manage to put alternatives if you want to see more. But this is the video that's gonna be some kind of like part one. And for now, this is everything you need to know about the Black Lion. Of course, you can contact me for more files, for more generally suggestions. I'm also providing the lessons, so you can check the links down below on my website. You can contact me, and I can show you more things, can help you a lot. And yeah, that's pretty much for this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next one. Bye bye.